Welcome to the Morning Edition Extra. I'm Adele Ruiz, coming to you from Alaska's News Sources Digital Desk. Happy Wednesday morning, everyone. Thank you so much for starting off your day with us here. Starting off the Morning Edition Extra, we have meteorologist Aaron Morrison, who's going to give us a breakdown over what we can expect weather-wise. Aaron.
Yeah, thanks, Adalmi. We do have a first alert weather day for Southeast. We're watching those avalanche dangers, which is rising in Juneau. Now, all known slide paths within Juneau are seeing that increased risk for some avalanche concerns as heavy snowfall sweeps through the region, with the heaviest occurring today. And of course, we still have winter storm warnings and advisories that remain in place across the Panhandle. 150.7 inches of snow accumulation. That is what Juneau has seen so far this season, making it the 9th snowiest season on a record. And we'll continue to see that climb here as we progress through the rest of March, looking at the potential that we could pick up several more inches between now and the end of this week. Areas to the south largely holding on to some rain as those temperatures are sitting in the 30s and the 40s, while locations to the north in the teens and the 20s will see that better shot of some snowfall sticking around. Now, one thing we will be watching here over the next couple of days, while some dry breaks will be possible, a warmer push of air will arrive with each band of moisture that builds into southeast. And as a result of that, we're going to see our rain snow line steadily building northward as the weekend approaches. And by Thursday, we'll begin to see a rain snow mix through the northern and central parts of the Panhandle. Dry break and then heavy rainfall looks possible as we welcome in our Friday for practically many areas of the Panhandle. And those yellows you're seeing, that's heavy downpours. That combined with some snow melt and temperatures warming into the 40s with some rain could exacerbate some of those avalanche concerns, as well as lead to some minor flooding as we welcome in the weekend. Now, by Friday evening on into Saturday, we will see the return to 6+ inches of snow accumulation. I think that 18.8 inches for Juneau is slightly overdoing it. While Juneau will still see some heavy snowfall, I think some of the heaviest accumulation will be through the Mendenhall Valley. And then as we head through the middle of the month, we are going to continue to trend wetter for a good portion of the southern Panhandle. So still no signs of any significant dry weather heading your way. For today, though, we're going to see snow to the north, rain, snow mix to the south, with a pretty good temperature spread across the Panhandle, about a 30-degree temperature spread with those temperatures in the teens to the north and 40s to the south. That 7-day forecast showing that temperatures will steadily warm as the week draws to a close. We'll top out in the lower 40s by Friday with that widespread rain. And keep in mind, those avalanche concerns continue to steadily climb for Juneau.
All right, thank you, Aaron. And if you caught our report on gas price averages yesterday, you may notice that this one is a little bit higher, which only reflects just how rapidly these prices are adjusting and inflating in reaction. Prices here in Alaska are up nearly a dime over the last week, from $3.58 to $3.67. on average across the state. A week ago, the national average sat at $2.97, and yesterday that average sat at $3.10, and today that average has increased again to $3.19. Other factors that led to increased cost include the transition to spring and seasonal rides, as well as more drivers taking to the road. The governor also telling the Fairbanks Chamber that the Iran conflict has driven oil prices up. Good for Alaska's budget, he says, but bad for families. He also says leaving the state in better shape may require policy changes, including a possible state sales tax, and he focused on the LNG pipeline, calling it key to the interior's future, possibly bringing data centers and international investment.
This gas line project that we're working on is going to be huge for Fairbanks, the interior, the entire state. It's going to change the paradigm for decades to come. It's going to produce cheap electricity, cheap heating, gas for businesses, gas for schools, gas for hospitals, you name it, and it will attract businesses up here. So gas is going to be key to the future.
The governor is staying in Fairbanks to speak with the Environmental Protection Agency later today. They are expected to talk about things like managing permafrost and haul trucking. Aside from the economic impacts of the conflict in Iran, with oil and therefore gas prices spiking across the country, and in a period where Americans are already struggling with increased costs, there are other effects the conflict is having. We spoke with an Anchorage leader in the Jewish community, Rabbi Yosef Greenberg, who spoke to us before a celebration of Purim.
It's coming alive. The whole story of the Book of Esther is coming alive to us, as going back all the way 2,500 years ago. And unfortunately, the dictatorship and the evil regime of Iran has been sponsoring terror against Israel with its proxies for the last 40, 50 years.
We also spoke with Minu Mene, a former Anchorage school district teacher who moved to the United States from Iran as a teen. She says she was thrilled when she heard the news that the Iranian regime was gone, but hopes something worse doesn't take its place, hoping that this is the beginning of a new era in Iran.
In fact, that was one of the reasons I came to California, because it was much easier for me to connect with my family and relatives in Iran. And I had no connections with them for 3-4 days. And last night I finally got a text from them that they are okay. And so many of our friends have lost their home, and it's devastating what's happening.
Aside from speaking about the conflict in Iran, the rabbi explained some of what Purim is and what it means to the Jewish community and how they celebrate it.
Today, Jewish people around the world are celebrating the holiday of Purim, which is the holiday that celebrates the resilience and the eternity of the Jewish people.
And last but not least is giving gifts of food to your friends.
It's really remarkable to see how the Book of Esther, the book says that in every generation, in every city, in every town, there will be Jewish people celebrating the holiday of Purim. And you could see that in Alaska, here we have a celebration today in Anchorage. My son, who is a rabbi at the Metro Valley, the Metro Jewish Center, he has a celebration in Palmer, in Wasilla, and in Talkeetna, and there is a rabbi that we have now in Fairbanks. Every Jewish community in Juneau, in every town in Alaska, people celebrating Purim, because this is a holiday that represents how Jewish people react to a situation like this. And the memory of that holiday will never vanish from the Jewish people. It will always be there. From the greatest darkness, from the threat, the biggest threat to the Jewish people in history, came out the greatest holiday, the greatest joy. Purim is considered the most joyous Jewish holiday ever. There's a very famous saying by Jews: they were trying to kill us, we won, let's eat. So Purim holidays are a holiday that we celebrate with wine, with good food, and it's actually a commandment to have a meal and celebrate and party. So that's what you're going to see here tonight. And we read the story because we have a long memory, we have a long history, and a long Megillah, the Book of Esther. We read the story because we want to make sure we never forget that we will always maybe face threats like this, and remember our resilience, our eternity, and our way of overcome any tragedy.
A flight from Eek to Bethel had some unexpected developments, and the Nenana Ice Watch is beginning. So the passengers on a flight from Eek to Bethel got more than they bargained for after a door broke off the plane mid-flight. And that a report from the FAA says the incident occurred at 6 p.m. on Sunday when the plane was just 5 minutes from landing in Bethel. 6 people, including the pilot, were on board at the time. No injuries were reported, fortunately, and the plane was able to make a safe landing.
One of the biggest concerns that we had is obviously any kind of damage to the tail section, either the vertical or the horizontal stabilizers, the control surfaces on the tail of the airplane. Thankfully, in this case, it never contacted it, so there was no damage.
This incident is a reminder of more than 2 years ago when an emergency flight emergency exit door broke off an Alaskan Airlines flight while it was still in the air. While these two events are similar, representatives with the National Transportation State Board say the incidents are incredibly uncommon. And AI is top of mind in data centers like the ones powering these systems are becoming increasingly common around the country. Now, as Joe Allgood reports, conversation on how to regulate them has arrived in Anchorage with concerns over their energy and water usage.
Well, with all the talk about data centers, you might be wondering what one looks like. Well, here's an example. This is a data center belonging to the IT company AlasConnect, and it's one of only two in Anchorage. But soon, there might be more. Alaska falls far behind most states when it comes to quantity of data centers, with fewer than 10 across the last frontier, paling in comparison to the over 500 in the state of Virginia alone. Though there are some, like Governor Mike Dunleavy, who believe Alaska is the perfect place for future data center development, due to its abundant fresh water and cool weather. That's because data centers use a lot of water. In 2023, data centers consumed about 17 billion gallons of water nationwide, according to the Pew Research Center. All that water is used to cool server banks filled with advanced computer chips that draw a lot of energy. How much energy? The same Pew Research says data centers accounted for 4% of the entire country's electricity consumption in 2024. And that number is expected to rise as much as 200% in the next 4 years. So the Anchorage Assembly is looking at amendments to municipal code requiring sufficient electricity and water to support this kind of development. Public comment began Tuesday and will continue on March 24th.
I'd say it's a good start, but if you're using enough energy for 100,000 households, I think it was, that should be a large concern. Do you have space here within Anchorage to host these things?
This data center has been here for a number of years, and it's relatively small compared to the larger counterparts across the country, and those are the ones inciting the most concern about their power and water usage. And those are the ones that may be coming soon to Anchorage. Joe Allgood, Alaska's news source.
Also at the Assembly meeting, stricter laws are surrounding animal neglect and cruelty. It is now illegal to leave an animal in a vehicle for 8 consecutive hours or more. The crime now warrants a $250 fine for first-time offenses and $500 for repeat offenders. In the case that an owner must forfeit their animal due to criminal charges, the animal will now be held for a minimum of 10 days after the owner's release. A jury is deciding whether an Anchorage man is guilty of killing another man over a $550 drug debt. Closing arguments wrapped up Tuesday, ending a month-long trial. Elijah Ramirez, now 30, faces charges of first and second-degree murder, as well as kidnapping in the death of 48-year-old Oscar Garcia. Garcia was found dead in a vehicle on Merrill Drive in November of 2019. Prosecutors say Garcia was shot multiple times from the backseat of a red Kia Soul after an argument over an unpaid debt.
That if you're one of the two guys in the back seat of that Kia Soul when Oscar Garcia is shot from behind with 2 different guns under the law of accomplice liability, you are guilty of murder, whether you were the principal or the accomplice.
And he told you about that. He agreed with me that when you are a federal 5K'er, you've got to have important details. So you should definitely look at his testimony with distrust.
Jurors will continue deliberations in the Ramirez case this morning, and we will update the story once a decision has been made. So keep your eye on our website and mobile app for the latest details as they become available. New details on the death of the newest deckhand on Deadliest Catch have been released to the public. In a statement to the press, the Coast Guard says that they were alerted to a crew member falling overboard on the Aleutian Lady on February 25th. The Coast Guard says Meadows' body was taken to Dutch Harbor, roughly 170 miles from where he died. It was there the body It was there that the body was identified as a 25-year-old deckhand from Washington.
As a barrage of missiles volley across the skies of the Middle East, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is laying out the battle plan.
Apologies for that. That was supposed to be a soundbite from the Deadliest Catch, I'm sorry. And it was Angela Meadows, Todd's mother, saying that he did not prove to anybody else, but he only proved to himself, his kids, and his father. And Meadows was filming his first season of Deadliest Catch at the time of the incident. And we'll be right back after a very short break. When we come back, we'll have that story that was playing on an accident, but we'll have that story of the Iran war and an update on the military actions. We'll have President Trump's goals on the Iran war. We'll have the Colin Gray's verdict that was reached yesterday, and we'll have John Thompson and Emma Wolfers discussing what is going on in the government that you need to know about. So stick with us, we'll have those stories and more. Welcome back into the Morning Edition Extra. President Donald Trump warning the U.S.-Israel offensive against Iran could drag on for weeks. This is the death toll of American soldiers and Iranian civilians rise. Molly Martinez reports the latest from Washington.
Volley across the skies of the Middle East. As a barrage of missiles volley across the skies of the Middle East, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is laying out the battle plan.
The mission of Operation Epic Fury is laser focused. Destroy Iranian offensive missiles, destroy Iranian missile production, destroy their navy and other security infrastructure, and they will never have nuclear weapons.
U.S. Central Command confirming its first U.S. casualties, with the number expected to grow.
Sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is.
Many questions are unanswered. Chief among them, who will lead Iran now that the supreme leader is dead? Hegseth says that's up to the people. Maine Independent Senator Angus King isn't so sure.
I haven't yet seen what the end game is, what the next steps are. We've learned over the years that you can't do regime change from the air.
Another question, how was the president once again allowed to supersede congressional powers of war?
And this president has shown a pattern from the very beginning of this administration of acting unilaterally, of acting without the consent of Congress.
Senator King says lawmakers are slated to vote on a war powers resolution this week, notably after the fact. King says he'll vote for it, but a new CNN poll shows 6 out of 10 Americans disapprove of this war. In Washington, I'm Molly Martinez.
President Trump back in Washington lays out his objectives for the war with Iran. Gray Media's White House correspondent John Decker has that story.
President Trump justified the ongoing military operation against Iran and suggested that the military conflict in the Middle East would last 4 to 5 weeks. In his first remarks on the Iran war since returning to the White House, President Trump explained why military action against Iran was so necessary after the U.S. gave up on diplomacy.
They ignored those warnings and refused to cease their pursuit of nuclear weapons. In addition, the regime's conventional ballistic missile program was growing rapidly and dramatically, and this posed a very clear, colossal threat to America and our forces stationed overseas.
The president also outlined his main military objectives for the Iran conflict.
First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis, and their capacity to produce brand new ones, and pretty good ones they make. Second, we're annihilating their Navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon, never going to have a nuclear weapon.
The president also said he wants to stop Iran from arming and funding terrorist groups in the region. Earlier at a Pentagon briefing, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, along with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, said the U.S. was adding forces in the Middle East to support Operation Epic Fury. The U.S. has already suffered casualties, and the president warned that more casualties are likely. The war has already impacted oil prices, which surged on Monday over concerns that oil supplies could be impacted by the ongoing conflict. At the White House, I'm John Decker.
The jury has reached a verdict in the case of the father of accused Appalachia High School shooter Colt Gray. Colin Gray was found guilty on all 27 counts tied to his son's alleged shooting, including 2 counts of second-degree murder. Jurors found that Colin Gray had sufficient warning his son was at risk to harm others, but he still gave Colt access to the gun investigators say was used to kill 2 students and 2 teachers. The trial is a first of its kind for Georgia, but prosecutors hope that holding parents accountable for this type of violence could prevent future shootings.
We hope that it moves the needle a little further. I think you saw in this case that the mother actually reviewed what happened in Michigan, which would have been the first one, and she then, as a result of that, asked her husband to remove the weapons. It could have ended this tragedy. So Michigan was able to move the needle to the point that it almost stopped this tragedy. We don't know how many tragedies it did stop, and we hope we've moved the needle a little further. But it wasn't like one parent missed one warning. This was multiple warnings over a lengthy period of time, and like we said, you just had to do one thing and take that rifle away, and this would have been prevented. So I think it was all of those things together.
Colt Gray is still awaiting trial. Colt Gray is still awaiting trial on 55 charges tied to the shooting, including malice murder and felony murder. And now here is our very own John Thompson and Alaska's news source, Washington correspondent Emma Wolfers. They're going to be discussing what is happening in the government, what is going on, and what you need to know and how it impacts you.
Well, the war with Iran continues. President Donald Trump predicts that the conflict could drag on for weeks. Alaska's news source, Washington correspondent Emma Wolfers joining us from D.C. Emma, it's a fast-moving, dynamic conflict. Can you tell us the latest, please?
Yeah, John, we now know the names of 4 of the 6 U.S. service members killed in the war thus far. Captain Cody Cork, Sergeant First Class Noah Tiethens, Sergeant First Class Nicola Moore, and Specialist Declan Cody. Now, all 4 were Army Reserve soldiers assigned to the 103rd Sustainment Command out of Des Moines, Iowa. The Pentagon says they died in a drone strike in Kuwait Sunday. The DoD does tell us as well that they are investigating this incident. More generally in the conflict, Israel stepped up attacks on Iranian missile launchers and weapons factories. Iran fired dozens of ballistic missiles at Israel and launched drone attacks across the Gulf. Some more updated casualties as of Tuesday night. Nearly 800 people have been killed in Iran, according to officials there, 50 killed in Lebanon, and 11 people in Israel.
Now, Emma, as the conflict continues with Iran, the State Department is urging U.S. citizens in 14 Middle Eastern nations to depart now. What are government officials doing to aid in that?
Yeah, John, the State Department estimates about 1,500 Americans are still in affected areas, but the options for those trying to get out have been limited. Tuesday, the U.S. closed its embassies in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia after a confirmed drone strike. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the department has established a 24/7 task force to help provide U.S. citizens with up-to-the-minute safety and security information. When asked about evacuations, Rubio told reporters that this would be a variety of methods, including charter flights, military flights and transports, expanded commercial opportunities, as well as land routes. He's really trying to say that they want to get people out of the area and into neighboring countries where they could possibly fly back to the U.S. Rubio and President Trump are also encouraging Americans in the region to sign up for updates and connect with the State Department on social media. More information on that and where to sign up is at state.gov.
All right, this conflict, these strikes have had immediate impact on the economy. Emma, how's it affecting oil prices and the stock market currently?
John, just 4 days in, the Dow dropped more than 1,000 points Tuesday morning before recovering slightly a few hours later. Some of the biggest hits, obviously, are oil prices. Crude oil briefly leapt above $84 a barrel, settling around 80. That's still up 4.7%. Now, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, 20 million barrels of oil pass through the Strait of Hormuz every day. That's at the southern tip of Iran. And that's nearly a quarter of the global oil trade supply. So the real concern here is disruption in that pipeline of getting the product out. And we're likely going to see this play out at the pump. The average price for a gallon of gas in the U.S., according to AAA, already jumping 11 cents Tuesday. It's now at about $3.11 a gallon.
All right, Emma, and finally, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem faced bipartisan criticism as she was testifying in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. What can you tell us what came from that?
Yeah, for 4 hours Tuesday, Noem defended her handling of the department, the administration's immigration enforcement tactics, and blamed activists for attacks against federal officers. This was Noem's first congressional appearance since 2 protesters were shot and killed in Minneapolis by federal agents. Democrats on the committee scrutinized her handling of those fatal shootings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, as well as her initial characterization of those 2 U.S. citizens as armed agitators. Now, Republicans went after Noem as well. Louisiana Senator John Kennedy questioned DHS paying more than $200 million for an ad campaign featuring Noem last year. North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis threatened to try and halt all Senate work if Noem fails to respond to his office's inquiries about an immigration crackdown in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, Noem is not done with her time in the hot seat. She is set to appear before the House Judiciary Committee later today.
Alaska's news source, Washington correspondent Emma Wolforce joining us from D.C. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
And now we're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we'll be talking about the bird flu killing some sea pups as its rise in bird flu is spreading. We'll be talking about a Medal of Honor that was awarded by the president to a veteran, and we'll be talking about a windstorm in Kaktovik and how that went, how the recovery process is going, and then we're going to be talking about the Nana Ice Classic. So stick with us, we'll have those stories and more when we return. Welcome back, Darren. Thank you so much for sticking with us on this morning edition extra. You can call it a fluke or you can call it a miracle. A sheriff in Central Florida says his deputy is lucky to be alive because of it. Mark Lehman reports.
If you don't believe in God, you'd believe in tonight.
Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood is calling it a miracle that one of his deputies survived a gunfight at a home in Deltona on Monday. Deputy Jose Rivera and a trainee were investigating an earlier assault and battery when they encountered Luis Polanco at the front door.
When they asked him to put the box down and step outside, he slammed the door in their face and he went back into the house.
Investigators say in a matter of seconds, Polanco came back outside armed with a handgun and opened fire. Deputy Rivera was hit twice after a bullet first struck his chest-worn body cam.
Thank God for his body camera takes a round dead center in through the body camera, which we believe then ricochets through his shoulder, takes another shot through his leg.
Rivera, who also opened fire, was rushed to the hospital and is expected to make a full recovery. Polanco, who was not injured, was booked into jail overnight as an investigation into the shooting is underway.
I can't say enough about the deputies. I mean, you're in a battle for your life from 6 feet away.
The biggest fear is coming true for scientists who study and care for elephant seals. Avian flu has started killing off pups along the San Mateo County coast. The HPAI avian flu, which stunned scientists when it spread into dairy cows 3 years ago, is spreading again. The same signs that decimated 95% of the southern elephant sea population off of Argentina, over 17,000 seal pups dead in weeks, enough that it will take decades for that population to recover, are now present in the northern hemisphere, affecting seals off the California coastline. The only question now is if it will spread as viciously through the northern population. Researchers are keeping a very close eye on the situation, and guided elephant seal tours for the remainder of the season have been canceled. And President Trump awards 3 medals of honor for acts of valor during World War II, Vietnam, and Afghanistan. Alaska's News Source's White House correspondent John Decker has the story.
Nearly 81 years after his incredible act of bravery, a Tennessee man was honored posthumously at the White House with the nation's highest military honor, the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Thank you, Chris. Today, your father gets the honor he so courageously earned.
Master Sergeant Roderick "Roddy" Edmonds was honored by the president for his heroic actions while serving as a prisoner of war in Germany during World War II.
On July 26, 1945, a Nazi SS officer issued an order over the camp loudspeaker, loud and strong. He said that only American Jews were to show up to roll call following this morning. He added, all who disobey this order will be shot immediately.
Roddy was the top-ranking infantryman in the camp of 1,200 POWs. He knew there were more than 200 Jewish American soldiers in the camp, and if they were separated from the group, he knew it would mean certain death.
So that night he summoned his team and devised a plan. The next morning, all 1,200 American men fell in line together, shoulder to shoulder. Enraged, the Nazi commandant rushed forward, drew his Luger pistol, and pressed the barrel between Sergeant Edmonds' eyes. He barked at Roddy. They cannot all be Jews, he screamed loud and again, and staring straight back into the raging face of evil, Sergeant Edmonds replied fearlessly, we are all Jews here. The Nazi officer lowered his weapon and the soldiers erupted in cheers. With total disregard for his own life, Roddy had saved over 200 of his fellow service members there.
That POW camp was liberated just 2 months later, and 81 years after Roddy's incredible act of bravery, his son Chris from Knoxville accepted the Medal of Honor on his father's behalf. At the White House, I'm John Decker.
Now, when will ice break on the Tanana River? Alaskans are placing their bets as the Nenana Ice Classic returns. Organizers are setting up the tripod this weekend during Tripod Days, a two-day celebration with races, vendors, and contests. The tripod's connected to a clock that stops when the ice breaks. The century-old tradition employs 100 people. And supports charities. $3 tickets are on sale through April 5th at more than 200 locations.
A lot of students, it's their first time job, or for many people, it's a job that the only job they get throughout the season. Also, when we do what's called ice pool, when we hand sort the tickets, when people come together, you know, we've all been kind of retreating to our homes during the cold winter. And so being able to come together and seeing people that you haven't seen, you know, for months, and getting out and seeing that sunlight, like, it's an incredible thing.
Each guest costs $3. You can also mail in your guesses to the P.O. box listed on their website. And a basketball tournament in one of Alaska's most remote communities turned into a battle of the elements over the weekend, but the people of Kaktovik made sure no one was left behind. Take a look at the video. We'll take a look at the video in a moment. It was almost impossible to make out what we're even looking at. Those whiteout conditions show the sheer power of the winds that battered Kaktovik over the weekend. Danny Tompkins has a closer look at the ferocious gusts that brought the village to a standstill.
85-mile-an-hour winds, whiteout conditions, and more than 150 people, including dozens of students trapped inside a gym with nowhere to go. It's the kind of storm that tests the very fabric of a community. And in Kaktovik, they passed with flying colors. Doxy was in town to officiate the state qualifying basketball tournament.
Got an alert from the mayor as the winds were picking up. Everybody's phone started going off saying, stay in place.
About 150 people, fans, students, and staff spent Friday night camped out on the gym floor.
We were all kind of just trying to make sure the kids were fed and they were enjoying being in the gym rather than anywhere else where they can run around. And you know how it goes. The gym's the kind of the heartbeat of the community, and the kids were enjoying their time running around.
When the eye of the storm briefly passed in the morning, they made a move. A loader bus crawled through the snow, carrying students just a few blocks to get food.
Everybody worked together to get the bags in the bus, get everybody in the bus. We drove 1 mile per hour for about 15 minutes.
For those who've never experienced an Arctic blizzard, Doxy says the power of the wind is hard to put into words.
There's one point where we opened the door to try to just see outside, and it just felt like a jet blasted you in the face.
Despite the danger, Doxy says no one panicked. In true Alaska fashion, everyone stuck together.
When you live in rural Alaska, the best people to trust are the locals. At that point, everything was in their hands, and God kind of directed them.
Danny Tompkins, Alaska's news source.
We're going to take another very short break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about watching your wallet, that card skimming operation story that I talked about in the morning edition. We'll be discussing how the Secret Service says there's been recent anti-skimming operations that were stopped, hundreds of millions of dollars in potential fraud losses, but criminals are still finding ways to steal card numbers at places like ATMs, very popular places that many of us use every day. So that we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about how people who are using weight loss drugs, specifically like GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic, how they might be putting their bones at risk. And we'll be talking about some other health stories as well, including breast cancer survival continuing to improve in the United States. So we'll have those stories when we return. Welcome back into the Morning Edition Extra. It's tax time, which means many of you will soon be seeing tax refunds in your bank accounts. In this Watching Your Wallet, consumer investigator Rachel DePompa shares a few ideas from a personal finance coach on how you can make that money work for you.
From ATMs to gas pumps.
Excuse me, that is not the right story, but looks like we do not have the tax refund story in at the moment. So The Secret Service says its recent anti-skimming operation stopped hundreds of millions of dollars in potential fraud losses, but they say that criminals are still finding ways to steal card numbers at places many of us use every day. In this Watching Your Wallet, consumer investigator Carice Stackman sits down with one-on-one with a Secret Service investigator and shares simple ways to protect your money and your credit.
From ATMs to gas pumps. Michael Peck, Assistant Special Agent in charge at the U.S. Secret Service, says criminals are still planting devices designed to steal your card information, a crime known as card skimming.
It's a crime where someone is stealing the numbers from your card specifically to then defraud you.
Peck says these thefts can hit anyone, and in some cases, stolen card data is used to drain benefits too, turning into EBT fraud that can hurt families who can least afford it.
We found not only is this an epidemic across the country, but through operations, we stopped nearly $500 million in financial fraud loss that was going to directly impact our citizens, our people.
He says the agency's strategy isn't just law enforcement, it's prevention too.
We are talking to churches, we're talking to retailers, we're talking to community groups. We're doing everything we can to increase the protective posture of consumers and increase our resiliency.
And he says you can take a few quick steps before you swipe or insert your card, especially at ATMs and gas pumps.
For an ATM, they're going to put a small device inside of it, and usually a device on the outside that is stealing not only your card information, but your PIN number that they can then use to access your cash. Same thing goes for gas pumps. They will put a device inside the card slot, and they will put something usually on the outside that is going to steal that card number.
So before you pay, give the card reader a quick check. Look for signs it's been tampered with, like loose parts, tape, or glue residue. And if one pump looks different from others, don't use it and let the station know. With this Watching Your Wallet, I'm Carice Jackman.
The Secret Service also says tourist areas can be popular targets, so stay alert when you're traveling, and if your card or benefits were hit, report it to law enforcement or contact your bank or card issuer right away.
In the U.S., nearly
Okay, so we do not have the video for this one, but people are using weight loss drugs. Who are using weight loss drugs might be putting their bones at health. New research shows the use of GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy could increase the chances of developing osteoporosis and gout. That's according to research presented Monday at the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons annual meeting. A study of adults diagnosed with obesity and type 2 diabetes indicates GLP-1 users have a 30% increased risk of osteoporosis and 12% increased risk of gout. Experts say that could be due to rapid weight loss, an increase in the intake of nutrients, or other factors. The Food and Drug Administration notes semaglutide labels that the drug could increase bone fracture risks in older adults and in women. And it's World Hearing Day. Experts are using this as a time to raise awareness for hearing loss in children. They say it's more common than you think, and if left undetected, it can have a significant impact on healthy development. So in today's Health Minute, Mandy Gaither has the warning signs and how parents can help protect their child's hearing.
in the U.S., nearly 2 out of every 1,000 newborns had hearing loss in 2022. And while many of those are genetic, risk rises with age. One survey found more than 15% of children ages 12 to 19 have hearing problems.
Your hearing when we're babies is going to inform how we develop our speech and communication, how we communicate, how we develop language. It's also directly tied to how we're going to learn and academic achievement and how we socialize.
That's why Marquita Murkison with the American Speech Language Hearing Association says parents can help detect hearing loss early by watching how young children respond to speech and sounds. Can the child identify the direction of a sound source? As they learn to talk, pay attention to how many times they ask you to repeat yourself or turn up the volume on the TV or radio, or if they complain of their ears ringing or buzzing.
If you're starting to notice that certain speech sounds aren't being produced correctly, that's also an indicator that there might be some hearing loss there.
Murkison says noise-induced hearing loss is preventable, so watch the volume on things like toys and headphones. She says to keep it at 50 to 60% of the maximum volume or less, and to take listening breaks, as well as use hearing protection when around loud noises.
Make it normal, just like you would never imagine backing out of your driveway without putting your seatbelt on. You wouldn't go to the pool without putting on your sunscreen. You don't want to be around loud noises without having hearing protection.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Since loud sounds can also damage hearing in adults, Murkison says parents should also model these hearing loss prevention methods. She says families can find foam earring protection at any drugstore, and they'll have noise rating clearly labeled on the bag. Younger children should use over-the-ear hearing protection. And breast cancer survival continues to improve in the United States. A new report from Lancet found that death rates have fallen by more than 40%. The study from 1990 to 2023 showed the rate of new diagnoses dropped by nearly 30%. Advanced screening and early treatments have made breast cancer less deadly in the U.S. Low-income countries still struggle with a breast cancer rate of more than 80%. And we are going to take one final short Brinton Festival, and we have the World Cheese Championships and more. So stick with us. We'll have those stories and many more when we return. Welcome back, and thank you for sticking with us. In Fairbanks, while the Festival of Native Arts has ended, parts of the festival are continuing to live on thanks to modern mediums. A film showcase at the festival has raised the voices of new artists, new stories, indigenous language, and the retelling of a story well known in the Alaska Native community. While the festival is most commonly known for the song and dance performances as well as the crafts vendors, the addition of the film at the festival provides more. Stories such as Two Old Women, initially published as a book that has become embedded in the Alaska Native community, was brought to life by director Princess Johnson, giving viewers a new lens to the story. The festival also gave space for student filmmaker Nanish Peter to showcase the stories of Alaska Native youth, both stories putting the Gwich'in language on the big screen.
I really wanted to showcase that our languages, sometimes when people think about our languages and they're being taught in history, it's always like the indigenous people and it's something of the past.
And this short film took a lot of work, a lot of prayers.
Three films in total were presented during the festival, each adding to the understanding of Alaska Native cultures. Those films are currently working their way through the film festival circuits. And after a health scare, a veteran in Las Vegas hit the trail. He quickly learned hiking didn't just help his body get healthy, it healed his heart. The Good Side's Evan Leake shows us how he's helping veterans pair up with battle buddies to ease their mental health.
With every step, Nathan French feels his problems disappear.
After I had a heart attack, I started walking a lot, and I realized that the walking was helping my mental health more than my physical health.
A realization putting Nathan on a path of purpose, starting the 22 walk 3 years ago.
So I started a 22-mile walk on Veteran Suicide Awareness Day. And we've only done one of those. Team Red, White, and Blue asked me to do a weekly hike, and I'm like, oh, I can do a monthly hike. And that started a few months ago, and here we are.
Call it a new mission for these military personnel. Warrior hikes with their new comrades to keep their minds clear.
We have two Army veterans that just met each other for the first time, and they're talking about, what units they were with and where they were at and, what they've seen, and that kind of builds that immediate camaraderie from someone that you've never met before in your life.
Ready to attack the hill. The journey to the mountaintop eventually leads to these veterans opening up, sharing stories of the power of mental health and the toll it can take.
I had a friend that was in my squad commit suicide in front of us, and so something's got to be done. Veteran suicide is completely unnecessary, and if we can get out here and do stuff like this, and then I think we're actually being part of the solution, not the problem.
Maybe after the hike they'll pull me aside and they'll say thank you, like I needed that. I didn't even know I needed it. I didn't even know what this hike was all about, but now that I did it, I feel so much better.
Helping veterans reach new heights to get a better view of the valley and their lives. Evan Leake, Fox 5 News, local Las Vegas.
This Easter, the Peeps brand is inviting fans to welcome the spring season in style with a fresh lineup of limited edition collaborations from treats, fashion, and accessories. This year, you can look forward to Hostess Peeps cupcakes, Rita's Italian Ice Peeps mystery flavor, Chip City cookies, Baseball Life 101, Frost Buddy drinkware, the Children's Place Cake Bites, Bath & Body Works, Simply Southern, and Alex and Annie. With so many different brands, there's something for everyone. You can find out more at peepsbrands.com. And I'm a huge fan of like drinkware and like cups that you can take everywhere, especially those like Starbucks cups. I really like those, so I'm kind of collecting them. So definitely that Peeps cups that I see there is something very intriguing to me to add to my little cups collection. And in Taiwan, hundreds of people released lanterns into the night sky Tuesday evening. The event marked the end of the Lunar New Year festivities. People write their wishes for the new year ahead on the lanterns before releasing them. Tourists also took part in the event, writing their own wishes and releasing the lanterns. Some stated that they thought it was a nice reminder that despite negative things happening around the world, such as wars, fighting over politics and such, it's still possible for people to come together and wish for a better future. Excuse me, this is not the right story. There we go. Dairy producers from around the world are celebrating a Wisconsin favorite on the world stage, and we're talking about cheese. The 2026 World Championship Cheese Contest is underway at the Monona Terrace Community and Convention Center in Madison, Wisconsin. Dairy producers are getting their best products judged in hopes of being declared the world champ. The communications director with the Wisconsin Cheesemakers Association says, even us here in Alaska, we're invited to check it out and sample the goods if we happen to be in Wisconsin.
You're going to get a lot of different flavors, a lot of different textures. Take your time and try something outside the box. You know, you might see a sheep's milk cheese and you've never tried one of those before. Give it a shot.
Public viewing of the contest is available from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. today and tomorrow, and a champion will be crowned tomorrow on Thursday. Now we're at this story. Have you ever wanted your own dinosaur? And do you have roughly $5 million to spend on one? If you do, if those two describe you, here is your chance. This 17-foot-long legend is about to head to auction. About 66 million years old, the Triceratops dino is being pulled from the Wyoming Dinosaur Center. Trey, as they call the honored headliner, was found over 30 years ago in eastern Wyoming's fossil-rich Badlands. The prehistoric giant is expected to sell for up to $5 million as dinosaur skeletons become hotter and hotter investments. A stegosaurus named Apex sold for more than $44 million 2 years ago. A very cool thing if you're able to make this purchase at the auction. It'll be a very cool thing to own. And well, that wraps up the Morning Edition Extra this Wednesday morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and for starting off your day with us here at Alaska's News Source. We'll see you again at noon for the latest in news, weather, and more. Have a wonderful day.